When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: The Statuette, Part 2. User: DB3CX119. Posted March 23, 1997.
"You're late," she said. I wasn't, but I didn't argue. Madame Serafina stood in the doorway of the old Victorian like she'd been expecting me long before I worked up the nerve to knock. Her silver hair caught the thin afternoon light, and her dark shawl draped around her shoulders as if it belonged to another era entirely. Inside, her parlor felt older than the house around it. Heavy velvet curtains muted the sunlight into a warm amber haze. Lamps glowed softly, their bulbs low and steady. Shelves were crammed with old books, candle stubs, and jars of dried plants lining the walls. A round table draped in embroidered fabric sat in the center, and facing the plaster wall, not the room, leaned a tall mirror turned backwards, its frame chipped with age. She pointed to the smaller of two chairs, mine. I sat, my bag heavy on my lap. "Put it on the table," she said, without looking at me. I froze for just a second. I hadn't told her I was carrying anything, but I reached into the bag anyway and sat the small St. Peter statuette in the center of the cloth. It looked unimpressive there, dwarfed by the embroidery. Serafina did not touch it. She only studied it, tilting her head slightly as if listening to a tone the rest of the room couldn't hear. I explained everything, the dreams, the hallway, the cracked doors whispering behind their edges, the leaning silhouette at the end, the mornings where I woke to the statuette near my pillow, the freezer door cracked open, the kitchen counter rearranged in subtle ways that made my stomach twist. I told her about throwing it away, hiding it, freezing it. I told her about the way it always came back, and when I finally stopped talking, Serafina sat back in her chair, her gaze never leaving the statuette. "You didn't bring it into your home," she said quietly. "It brought you into its story." A chill rolled through my chest. She rose from her chair and walked toward the backward-facing mirror, running a hand across the top of its frame. Objects remember, not in the way we do. They carry impressions, grief, anger, fear. Things people don't deal with properly have a way of finding new routes. "Are you telling me something is attached to this?" I asked. She turned, eyes steady. "Something is attached to him." "My father?" Serafina gestured at the statuette with a small, precise movement. "This figure belonged to someone who meant harm under your father's shadow. Whatever moved through those nightmares wants you to know that." I stared at the statuette, my jaw tightening. He was a bastard, but Serafina cut me off with a small raise of her hand. Spare me the softening. You came here because you already know the truth tastes bitter. I looked down at my hands. So what does this thing want from me? Justice, she said simply. Acknowledgement, recognition of whatever your father took. Then why come after me? I asked. You touched the tether, Serafina said. In the spirit's view, you opened the door. My breath went shallow. So it's punishing me for something he did? She shook her head. No, it needs you. The dead cannot speak without a mouth, and your father left nothing but debris behind him. She returned to her chair and finally leaned closer to the statuette, not touching it, just feeling the space around it with her palm. Tell me your dreams again, she said, specifically the hallway. So I did. The length of it, the carpet that shifted patterns when I blinked, the doors cracked open with whispering voices behind them, not inviting, not threatening, just waiting. The silhouette at the end, tall, uneven, bent forward like the world had weighed down its spine. Serafina listened, then said, "Those doors, they're not nightmares. They're memories, not yours." Memories of what? Your father's sins, she said softly. I swallowed hard. She reached out, and for the first time, her fingers brushed the edge of the tablecloth near the statuette. Not the statuette itself, she avoided that with what looked like practiced restraint. You have to open the doors, she said. I stared at her. In the dream? In the place it shows you. That hallway isn't metaphor. It's a path, a message, a demand. What happens when I open them? She didn't answer immediately. She was weighing her words, not for effect, but as if the truth itself required caution. Finally, she said, "You'll learn what your father did." And the figure at the end? This time, she did not soften her answer. "It's waiting for you," she said. "It will stay there until you face it." Something cold slid down my spine. And if I don't, the dreams will deepen, the tether will tighten. Her gaze fixed on me. This will not stop because you want it to. It will stop when you understand the wrong that was done. I pressed my palms against my knees to steady myself. What if I'm not ready to see it? You are, she said, or it wouldn't have come. Her tone hit me harder than the supernatural explanation itself. Serafina believed every word she said, not with desperation or theatrics, but with the calm of someone who'd given this speech before and had never been wrong. There was one more question clawing at me, though, and I hated hearing myself ask it. Will I survive this? Serafina didn't answer right away. She looked at the mirror, still turned to face the wall, and adjusted its angle slightly, like something behind it needed tidying. Then she said simply, "You'll survive if the spirit allows you to." That was it. No comfort, no promise, just a conditional fact hanging in the air like a blade balanced on its edge. The consultation was over after that. She didn't dismiss me. She didn't walk me to the door. She simply drifted toward one of the shelves, arranging dried herbs with the same gravity as she'd delivered her warnings. I took the statuette from the table, and it felt heavier than before, as if knowing eyes were inside it. When I stepped outside, the air hit me hard, cool against the sheen of sweat on my neck. The sun had dipped lower behind the trees, casting everything in long, distorted shadows. At the sidewalk, I looked back at the house. The curtains didn't move. No silhouette passed by the lamplit glass. It was just a quiet house on a quiet street, holding a secret I hadn't wanted, but now carried anyway.
Subject: A Very Jerry Christmas. User: Tracks Time. Posted December 18th, 1997.
Jesse and I have been living in this house for almost 5 years now, and not until today have we received mail for a previous occupant. Circumstances of the letter's arrival were almost as weird as its contents. Neither Jessica nor I even heard the mailman pull up, and yet, when I opened the door to head out to work, a weathered envelope marked with the logo of something called Anthony's Department Store was leaning against the front door. It was addressed to someone named Phil Davidson, care of our house, but it's not a name either of us has heard before. Jesse thinks it's a prank, and I'm inclined to agree. Still, maybe someone out there can make sense of it. The full text of it is below. While you read, I'm gonna go take a look at the basement stairs for reasons that'll soon become clear. Dear Phil, I hope you and Lindsay are having a great Christmas together. Are you still living in the same place? I guess if you're not, someone else is reading this and you've moved on. Or maybe you haven't moved in yet. Depending on the year, it might even be a while until you're born. Hey, before I get going, if someone other than Phil or Lindsay is reading this, can I get you to be cool and just put the letter back in the envelope? What you're gonna read here won't make much sense without all the backstory, and some of it might sound like actual crimes, which they are not, mostly. The third step in your basement staircase is loose. Pull it up and leave this under there. If you're reading this before May 2003, do not touch the small wooden case you find. Leave the envelope on top of it and go about your day. In exchange, I give you some free advice. Buy stock in Versus Systems Inc. right now, then sell it in 2004. Use the money to buy a house somewhere else. Oh, and avoid flying anywhere in September of 2001. No reason. All right, Phil or Lindsay or both, since the other guy is gone, I gotta say, shit has been real weird since the whole amulet thing. Time has been harder and harder to keep a handle on, and I don't mean in the whole, oh boy, I've got so much to do that time just flies by way. It's been more, oh shit, I went to sleep in my apartment in 2005 and woke up next to a bus shelter in 1981 Brooklyn. Have you guys had that problem? I know I held on to it for longer than either of you did, so maybe that's why the slippage has been so unpredictable. Me and Gollum both fucked up by the One Ring. As it stands right now, I'm writing this at the menswear counter of an Anthony's in Palm Beach, Florida. It's Friday, August 4th, 1972, and up until an hour ago, the place has been jumping with leathery-skinned retirees looking to cash in on our knitwear sale. Burt Reynolds actually came in last week, and let me tell you, what an absolute asshole. When he was about to leave, I said, "Enjoy the hairline while it lasts, Smokey," and he smacked me right in the mouth. It wasn't until afterward that I realized Smokey and the Bandit won't be out for a few years yet. Whatever. It was worth it to piss him off, that mustachioed bitch. Phil, I miss you, man. You were my best friend for a lot of years, and even before the amulet, we made it through some shit together. Are you still mad at me for shooting your grandmother in the face? Because if so, I have some great news. It wasn't actually her, and I have proof. Kind of. See, my last stop before here was in New York City in 1879. Let me tell you, while 1972 may not represent the peak of deodorant technology compared to the Gilded Age, it's practically sterile. Don't let the paintings or that Scorsese movie fool you. Everyone and everywhere back then smelled like a litter box doused in perfume. It was a bad time. When I first land in a time period, my clothes almost never make sense for the era, so depending on how suspicious people are, it can take a while for anyone to talk to me. Helena, though, she approached me almost immediately after I was nearly run over by a horse-drawn carriage full of smelly rich assholes on their way to what I'm sure was some equally filthy opera house. Helena was Russian and very interested in a stranger who clearly didn't belong in this particular time and place. She was a bit of a character, with some of that Madame Cleo energy. In her defense, I'm sure it went over big with people from back then. It's just that when you fought off flying black-eyed monsters with a broomstick, someone running their hands over a crystal ball doesn't register the same way. When I told her my story, she was excited and a little pissed off, probably because she didn't want to be upstaged in her shtick by some asshole in sweatpants and a Garfield hoodie. Not that she knew who Garfield was, and I asked, gesturing toward the crystal ball as if to suggest that you had a hotline for this stuff. No, I think it was more that she'd hoped confirmation of her beliefs might come via a burning bush or many-eyed angel instead of some guy who wanted to talk about a cat that likes lasagna. Anyways, I told Helena our story about us finding that box under your stairs, opening it up to find a glowing amulet that stung when you touched it in a way that kind of felt good. I told her how Lindsay had shown up, demanding to be included, then pointed out the amulet was probably cursed after I'd worn it to do my Flava Flav impression. Then, of course, your house fell into an alternate version of town where it was always night and we had to fight wave after wave of the undead on our way to the return portal at the hydroelectric dam. Blah, blah, blah. For someone who talked a lot about the dark arts, she sure had issues with my diagram showing exactly where on a gargoyle to insert a sharpened broomstick for maximum effect. Go figure. She said it made sense that the dam would be a nexus point because something about water being a conduit for energy, maybe. Between her accent and the smell, man, it was hard to pay attention. The thing is, when I told her that your dead grandmother appeared and tried to stop us going, she said that it probably wasn't even really her, that some entities will take the form of the people we love the most to deceive us. So, in effect, not only did I very likely save our lives, I didn't even have to kill your grandmother again to do it. Not that I killed her the first time, to be clear, so please don't be mad, man. Also, don't you think it's kind of funny that the person you loved most didn't turn out to be Lindsay? Come on, that's pretty good, isn't it? Just kidding, Linz. I love you. Look, I'd write more, but that son of a bitch Bert is back for round 2. I'm gonna give it to him so hard his mustache runs for cover in his balls. I hope you guys are doing well and not also free-falling through time. To the guy currently living in Phil and Lindsay's place, you suck for reading this letter when I asked you not to. Forget what I said about not flying in September '01. Go ahead and book that plane ticket, you nosy bastard. I hear 11 is a lucky number. All my love, Jerry.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.